Today we have Eric Yablonka, former Chief Information Officer of University of Chicago Medicine and the current Chief Information Officer of Stanford Healthcare. Tell us what you've been up to.
Well, thanks, George. I've been at Stanford for 3.5 years. We've done really interesting work, not only around state-of-the-art medical facilities and informatics, but obviously in the last year we've been dealing with this pandemic.
Eric, thanks for that sharing. You know, what you do and others at Stanford and many others in healthcare is so important right now, given the situation with the pandemic. I know you've been very passionate about data analytics and the use of it in meaningful ways. Tell me a little bit about what you're up to at Stanford with regards to data and analytics.
We all know that data and analytics are game changers for business. And we also know many industries have done incredible work using data in novel ways. Healthcare is really progressing nicely, but we are learning from other industries. A little over a year ago, we opened up a $2 billion new hospital, which is completely RTLS enabled. Our interest really is to think about how can we use technologies such as that in this context and in novel ways. And so we're thinking through some of those novel use cases. One of the things I would love to get to is using those sensors as a means to improve operations and services to patients. So the use case we've talked about is that we have patients who are having procedures. And of course, those procedures, let's use an MRI as an example, have a predictable time to conduct the procedure, and the patient, of course, has to be brought, in many cases, to the MRI and then returned back to their patient bed. And if we could just mash up that data and predict when that patient will be ready to be transported, then using our sensor data, we would know where the closest transporter might be, what might be the quickest path to travel, and anticipate when that patient is ready and have the person there ready to take them to where they need to go next, which is really important when you think about delays or excess time taken to provide services. We would like to not only be the most efficient, but we also want to provide the best customer experience. There are use cases like that that we talk about and think about all the time. And we now have the infrastructure to be able to do that kind of work. We're in the business, of course, of taking care of patients and making sure that not only are they treated well clinically, but also that they have the kind of experience that gives them confidence in our team. So another example is we have almost 1 million subscribers to our mobile application, and we're often pushing data to our patients. As an example, they'll immediately, within hours, get their clinical test results, or they'll get a follow-up from their care team. And these kinds of things a couple of years ago were in place, but not at the scale that they are today. The other interesting thing around data and analytics is really the scale at which we're working. We're not only talking about many individuals that we're taking care of, but we're also talking about making sure that how we take care of them, both clinically and operationally, as we talked about before, is really robust. And so we think of data and analytics as also just one piece in the chain, if you will, of technologies that we use to not only treat patients and, again, do sort of cutting edge medical research. And it's all really based on the data. More interesting things we're working on now is artificial intelligence work. We have multiple centers dedicated to that work. That's a huge consumer of data. And our faculty, particularly in our radiology area, are global experts in data interpretation, algorithm development, and artificial intelligence. And so one of the privileges of being at a place like Stanford is I get to be involved with that kind of leading edge thinking and knowing that, you know, we can change healthcare as we know it by the use of data algorithms. The flip side of that, of course, is there are lots of discussions around ethical issues relating to data and data use and the privacy and so in healthcare in particular, we're plowing new ground. And while it's very, very exciting, we also want to be very careful and thoughtful about how we do it.
Eric, we are also seeing a lot of demand for talent in the artificial intelligence and machine learning space. So we at Peterson Technology Partners, it definitely resonates with what you're saying. What do you see as the main one or two things within the healthcare industry that you would like to impart your wisdom and thoughts to our audience?
One thing I think is very important to recognize is the world has changed in the last year, and in particular in the healthcare industry. As you know, there was a very heavy move to remote or video interactions with patients. And that was both a safety initiative as well as ensuring we have the ability to have continuity in caring for our patients when there was heavy restrictions around travel and or visits to organizations. And so that push towards virtual care is going to continue and probably in a dramatic way over the next couple of years. There's been regulatory barriers to that going back, but going forward, some of those regulatory barriers were lifted in response to the pandemic, and we would hope and expect that those regulatory barriers will continue to fall away as we have new modes for providing service to our patients. So virtual care, I would think, would be one of the biggest things that healthcare will be challenged with in the next couple of years. And since you and I and everyone are healthcare consumers, we're all going to feel that change in how healthcare delivery is done. So that will be a very, very big thing. And then I do believe that things like research and health improvements, working on things like environmental and social determinants of health, how we deal with equity in healthcare delivery are also going to be very critical going forward. And so the ability for us to capture the data in the community that is not generated by our organization and be able to work with that data with our data is going to be really important as we try to lift up all of our communities using healthcare information technology and data, not just the ones who come to our organization for service. So I think those are going to be two big trends going forward.
Eric, thank you so much for your time and your learning. It's very insightful. I know I learned some things, and I hope our audience will too. Thank you again.